Oh, there's no question the road doesn't get any easier. That's the interesting part of this league. I watched the Northwestern game last night. It was unbelievable. 18-point lead, and then they lose. We've lost 3 in a row. We know that, but need to find a way to bounce back in an environment that'll be big time at Illinois, I'm sure. After they lost the game, a late night game, 9 o'clock game, kids will be just getting ready to go. As always, I say we need to limit our turnovers, but having 7 turnovers in the last game was phenomenal, just not 6 in the first 5 minutes. And but we did do a better job of that. I just think that the fatigue factor that is more mental than physical is easy for me to see and hard for me to change. So we've tried to change up some things with practice. Cash and Xavier have given us a lot, but we need even more in some ways. And I thought it really helped getting Kyle Lawrence back to play 17, 18 minutes. Hopefully we can now start practicing him in that role. Aaron had a really good second half. Hopefully we can build on that. But we got some work to do, there's no question about it. As far as Illinois, they've lost their last 2 games, but had won 7 in a row before that. So just like the rest of the conference, like I told you early, it's going to come down to who you play, when you play them, where you play them, how many road games you got, how many home games you got. I think all the things that I said early have kind of happened. They're very tough at home, and yet they just got beat at home. Ayo is one of the more explosive guards in our league. He's nearly 16 points a game. He's got length. He got the ability to get to the hole. They have great guard play from Felix and Frazier. And so even though they're huge inside, it seems like Frazier, Felix, and Griffin have done a lot of damage lately. Felix scored 11 points. Frazier has got 44 threes, and Griffin had 8 points in the last game, but he's a guy that doesn't necessarily shoot it much, but when he does shoot it, they go in. He's a very good 3-point shooter, maybe one of their best. Big guys inside, strong. Coffee is huge. We know he's averaging 14 and 9. Georgie's another tough player in the post for them. That is maybe an excellent passer. We're going to have to do the job with multiple guys, but I think the biggest thing is we still got to take care of what we do, and that's to take care of the ball a little better, get our break going, which to me has been non-existent, and get a little more energy.
You mentioned the mental fatigue that you're fighting against at the beginning. Is that always kind of happen this time of year for a team? Or something about this year that's been that more of an issue?
No, guys, it's I've talked to some of you individually. I've talked to some of you. I mean, I think to my sadness, we've almost forgotten that it's been 3 months. Yesterday, when somebody went through a very tough situation, that fatigue is. That's what the fatigue is. The freshmen, they're okay, but that has been ongoing for more than a month, and it's been interesting. It's been difficult, but no more difficult than IEM, and so we're just trying some different things that we can try, doing some different things we can do, but. Most of you that watch us, although not all of you, because some of you, I've had some guys ask me questions that to me are almost understandable, but somewhat like not understanding. And I never know how to give you a good answer, but I don't think it's physical fatigue. We've really we've practiced. We've really, yesterday we gave more or less a day off of anything except walk through. Today we got to practice because you got to practice. And I told you early in the year that the schedule, are going to mandate a lot of things. It's doing it for everybody in this league. And we're no different. We've just been dealt some other cards that we're trying to work our way through, that's all. So I don't think that the freshmen have hit the wall. You know, maybe that's coming, maybe it's not. But that's not what's causing us to turn the ball over like we have. Those guys are sophomores, juniors, or seniors. So it's just something we're going to have to keep working at. And I promise we're going to keep working at it, and we're going to get it changed. But it's been a little different than I thought. But the whole year's been a little different than I thought in a lot of ways.
With that, do you have any update on Xavier's situation with his baby, and if there's any timeline on that? And also, with Kithier missing the trip for being sick, how much did that affect maybe the rotation?
Kithier's back, you know, and I think, I don't know if that'll help us in this game, but it'll help us as we go as far as, not to be ridiculous, but I've been called a lot of things, some good and some bad, and everybody's got different religious beliefs. But not a doctor, I'm not the big fella upstairs, if you believe in that. So as far as Xavier goes, that one's out of my hands. I'll have a game plan for him, but I'm not involved in, you know, I won't be involved in the delivery process. And I won't be involved in anything but trying to help Xavier deal, cope, and move forward. And he's handling it very well. It's just, it's not something I've gone through very often, or never. So we'll be all right with that.
Two quick ones, Tom. Starting first with Rocket. Obviously, you're right in the midst of still fighting for this season, but next season he could very well be your point guard. How important is it to get him more reps at point guard?
None.
No.
Not at all. Because you're right. I mean, we're 16-8. We're not 8-16. I'm not giving up on anything. I'm pleased with Rocket's progress. I mean, you know, it's not always exactly what I want, but I said, you know, the Rocket thing, you know, December hurt Rocket, just like January hurt Kyle. I mean, but when you're a freshman and you miss a month, 3 weeks, it's not as easy to come back from. I think he's done a pretty good job of it, and doesn't give us everything we need yet, because we need a little bit more, because other guys aren't maybe playing up to their potential. But you know, we'll worry about next year. I don't look at anything, Hondo, to be honest with you, about next year, because I think I still have a very good team this year. That, remember now, is a couple layups away from we'd be leading the Big Ten. And do I think we're playing well? No, I don't. Do I think I know the reasons? Some of them. But then control all of them? Not quite. But the ones I can, I want to make sure we control and do a better job.
Second one, there are a lot of things as a coach you can control and a lot you can't. But when you're giving practices off and you're doing things to let people, you can't control sleep patterns, how people deal with stress and all of that. Has that been maybe more evident to you this year than at any time in your career?
Evident or challenging?
Both.
Yeah, it's been more challenging than anything, because I'm not one of these guys that I really don't care much about certain things. I believe that you got to fight through everything from me to them. It's just been a different. We just talked about one thing. Now I'm a stork. You know, I'm a baby deliverer, and then the next minute I'm, you know, trying to help somebody through some things. I mean, those two things alone have never happened to me since I've been here. So, you know, I don't know. I just know this. I still think we're that far, and I don't think we've played that well. When I look back at games like Illinois and Michigan and Minnesota and Western, you know, the start of the year, I thought we were playing at a very high level. And if you put those two on the same screen, and there's reasons that I have to research every day. unfortunately spending as much time on that as I am on the opponent. And so, you know, it's just so hard to talk about because I think some people don't understand it. It's hard to talk about because the word excuse comes in. I think I've been in this job for most of you guys 15, 20, 25, or for a couple of you, 6 months. But I don't think excuses has been ever a part of what I am. I don't make them for my players, I don't make them for myself. But there is a reality. You talked about a reality, or there are things that happen that are out of your control. Although I'm glad you told me that half the things are in my control and half the things, because I've always thought that everything's in my control, and yet I'm not making delivering a baby one of them. That's the only one I'm not going to. The other ones I gotta take onus on and I gotta deal with them. But that part has been different. I will be more well versed. You know, I've said to you a couple times, there's no book I've read on that, or there's no experience Jed could give me on that. Well, now I can give some other people some words of experience. If hopefully none of these things happen again, or one of them doesn't happen again, but I can do that because this team has dealt with some things that most people haven't dealt with, and that's where I'm at with that.
I hate to ask the same question twice, but I asked you this after the game. I'm just wondering, you've been through these kind of mid-season lulls before, and I'm wondering if there's anything that you can look back on. Maybe is it just kind of throwing the players out and letting them try to figure it out, or if you have to press harder, just to, because you've had these lulls and then all of a sudden the team snaps and they make the runs in March and figure out the rest of the regular season. I don't know if you've had any more time to kind of maybe ponder that.
You know, I was looking at, we have a neat thing going on in our office that Drew Donesco, our video guy, started at the beginning of the year. And whenever we play a Big Ten team, every TV up there, which there's a zillion, have a different game on of the team we're playing. So if it's Illinois this week, it might be one from Magic, it might be one from Skiles, it might be one from Steve Smith, it might be one from Mateen, it might be one, you know, we've got all these different games going on, so you go around and look. So I started looking at the ones, you know, I was just kind of walking down the hallway, look at this, look at that. We have had some lulls, but every time I look, I walked into my staff room and I said, man, you know, and how many times we haven't been ranked? I'm watching these games, we're 1, we're 3, we're 7, we're 14, we're 19, we're 8, so the lulls have not been very long. There's gonna be losses, and what happens to us sometimes is a non-conference over those years, we weren't an undefeated team, ever, maybe once. And I think more of that's the schedule we played. So then you go through and you lose a couple games, which everybody's good in. And you come on in the tournament and everybody thinks, you know, you fought through a lull. Listen, I will never, ever, 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 hopefully, have to deal with some things I dealt with this year. But what I deal with isn't half of what somebody else is dealing with. So all I can be is the pushing and the pulling. You know, do I look back? I mean, how do I say this politely? It's not a very good question, because looking back, when you look back at something like in a science lab or in a psychology lab, the parameters got to be the same. You know, different team, but these are off the charts. You know, there's 2 things here we just talked about today that never happened in my 37 years. So I can't look back and then I can't handle it the same way. I mean, I've had meetings with parents. I've had meetings, you know, just to positively figure out how we can do this with professional people. And it's of no surprise to anybody who's been through it. It just, hopefully I'm talking about all of us. None of us have been through some of those things. One of them in particular. So there is no blueprint, there is no book, there is no looking back, there is no, but I wouldn't say that the lulls you lose some games, and I tried to explain it at the beginning of the year. You lose some games because you play some tough road games in a row, whatever the schedule brings to you. And sometimes that can be, I mean, should we have played 4 of our first 6 at home and 5 out of 7 on the road? Of course not. That's a rule that happened this year. I know the reason it happened. I'm not going to go into it. It had nothing to do with us. And it won't happen again that way. Okay, but it happened. And so, you know, the beauty of my sport is you just if you keep getting better, in the end, maybe some good things will happen to you. And we got a lot of work to do, but it's not like, you know, some of these teams that have beaten us recently are, you know, I think Penn State's a hell of a team. I also think a couple of plays and it's a different game, you know, and we win the game. So you miss a layup at the buzzer, you miss a layup with 5 seconds left. I mean, those are things you do. It happens. But if there was a lot of the Purdue game, I'd be worried about losing my team and all the things that everybody will want to say. I don't even think about that. I just think about how can I help be different than I am? Because I can't be, you know, I can grind it. That's happening every day. But I can't grind them. Does that make sense to you? And I've always been able to grind them. And this is just one time where it's not quite as applicable. If that makes any sense.
Perhaps related, how do you coach the guys to be more aggressive, diving for loose balls, rebounding better the way your teams have,
Yeah.
many times?
Well, you practice it. You practice it. And I've come in here and told you when we were winning, and now that we've got a few losses in a row, I told you the same thing. The practices haven't been as normal, and part of that's been a bunch of injuries, and part of it's been you know, you need, your best players have to play well and kind of lead in that way. This has been a program that has always relied on juniors and seniors, you know. Villanova has always been a program, juniors and seniors. Purdue has been a program, juniors and seniors. Kentucky and Duke, freshmen. You know, everybody's got a different way of doing it. And there's no right or wrong. But one thing juniors and seniors do is they kind of coach the freshmen and sophomores, or they explain how it's done. Or if the juniors and seniors, you know, struggle with being able to spend the time with those guys, then it's a little more difficult. And as you can tell, not to make you feel weird, I'm dancing around it, but there's a reason I'm dancing around it. And but we're not changing anything. We didn't go into Ann Arbor and play great. I mean, it's a 1-point game. It's a 4 or 5-point game late. I thought we played poorly. And so somewhere in there, there's a silver lining. I've also gone back. Yesterday was a lot of days with talking to a lot of different people, having some meetings, going over some film. Saturday night, I watched every game we played in the Big Ten. And it's there. It's there. I was using the word consistency a lot. We're still inconsistent, and sometimes it's for a half, and sometimes it's, I guess it's been for a game, not very often a whole game. But in practices, I think it's been different too, and I can't explain to you why. There are reasons. I just can't explain them all, but we're working on it. We're talking about it. We're talking to people about it. We're talking to players about it. Long meetings with Cash and Xavier on Sunday morning, and good long meetings. but it's been a little different. And you know what? It's gonna make me a better coach someday, and it's gonna make those players appreciate that when everything isn't going right, they got somebody to look to. It wasn't the fans on Twitter. It's gonna be me, and they're gonna have me. Question.
Tom, considering the challenges, I guess we'll use that word,
Yeah.
and what's been going on, have you thought about, you and the staff thought about getting really radical and change, at least on the court? I remember you talking at the beginning of the year about the lack of size in some ways, and maybe leaning into that, just saying, you know what, let's play a non-traditional forward and mix it up in that way. I'm curious if you've thought about that at all.
You know, I mean, I just want you to think about it. It wasn't 6 months ago that we were 8-2, you know, and I tried my hardest to tell all of you that some of it was the schedule and who you play and where you play, and I'm positive nobody listened. I mean, Rico's a good friend of mine in a way. If I'm allowed to have a media guy that's a good friend, and he asked me some questions the other day, and he's a good friend of a certain player I have and family, and just like didn't get it at all. And I only say that because if I jump to everything the social media wants me to do, a reporter wants me to do, and this and that, adjustments are adjustments, but we were just 8-2, you know, and we lost some tough games. See, people don't want to deal with when you see a player on the floor that's been injured, you don't want to deal with that he's not back the same way. The first time I saw anything out of Kyle was this week. That was the longest minutes he's played in a month and a half. And he is a stability for us. You know, we are playing a lot of young guys that aren't McDonald's guys. And did we change? We did go with a little smaller lineup a couple times. But, you know, the other side of the coin is we're about to play maybe the biggest team in the league. And so you got to make adjustments, and you don't get to make adjustments with freshmen or semi-freshmen, sophomores that didn't play much. You don't get to make those in a 1 week and then try to change it back the other week. But that is a sensible question that I think we have talked about. What do we do with Aaron? What do we do with Gabe? Can we move one of those guys in there? You know, we're trying to get them straightened out in the position they're in, and then you try to move them a position. But you know, some of that could happen, but it's not a time where I'm panicking and wanting to change everything. I can only tell you that.
Time for a couple more.
In terms of finding consistency and production out of that 4 spot, Malik, what are you most encouraged by, and what are the things that you think he might be able to turn the corner on in the next 3 weeks and actually make a real difference?
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure, but I do like the fact that he competes. He's athletic enough that we can switch 4. We can do some things there. But when you switch 4, then you're going to put 1 or 2 guys that I don't think are maybe as focused as they need to be in a position that we're changing, and that makes it difficult. And yet I'm not giving up on Markey. He's done some good things last game against Illinois. He played 20 minutes and actually played very well. I just, you know, Kithier would help because he's the stability of that group as far as he knows the most what he's doing. He played the most minutes last year. It is a revolving door. I said it was probably going to be. I'd like to get, but we're kind of looking like we always do as reporters, as coaches, as fans. We're kind of looking for what some guys that weren't supposed to do as much to do more, because the guys that are supposed to do what they can do, I mean, there's no reason we've turned the ball over like we have. That wasn't our freshmen doing it. And so we, you know, my chances of getting my best players better are better than chances of getting my young players better, if you ask me. And that's kind of the approach I'm taking.
Tom, the way the last handful of road games have started relative to the shooting, the turnovers, do you worry ever all about these guys that if you go on the road and say you miss a couple shots early, a couple turnovers, that they start to look around and think, are we having the same kind of start we've had?
You know,
last 4 or 5
I don't, because Cassius, none doesn't bother him. You know, the pressure doesn't bother him, the turnover doesn't bother him, a missed shot doesn't bother him. You know, and Xavier, I think the layups were bothering him a little bit, but he's pretty tough. He's pretty tough-minded. Like I said, Kyle would add a lot to that. Rocket, the one thing Rocket brings is he's tough, and that's what I like about him. He's mentally tough. He's physically tough, and but I don't look at it as that. You know, I try to tell him that we've been through these things other times. Everybody's been through them. There's been so many teams. Look at Purdue. They started out so poor, and now they're playing well. Indiana was playing so well, now they're not playing as well. I mean, Michigan started out poor. They're playing a little better. I mean, everybody's going through these things. Villanova loses at home. They never lose at home. You know, it's the craziest year of college basketball. What added to mine is some of these crazy things that are going on outside of basketball. And just got to deal with them. Just got to deal with them, and we'll deal with them the best we can deal with them. Yes?
Do you mind just your thoughts on the recent coaching search with football and what have? I know you said you wanted to be a part of the process.
Yeah, you know, and I've been a little bit a part of the process. The reports that I was flying around, you know, that damn Nassau, you know, they wouldn't oblige. I couldn't get Sputnik 1 to come here and pick me up and take me places, but I've read where I've been at a lot of places. I have been. If you ask my wife, no, she wouldn't know because I haven't been home. If you asked, if you asked the janitor in his building, he'd tell you where I've been. So number one, I haven't been where I was reported to be. Number two, I am involved in it, and I think Alan and Bill and Jen have kept me very much involved. I will talk to some people. I will do some things, but you know, Coach D is still involved. I got friends in the coaching world that's the one advantage I get, that I can call and we're going to get a good football coach. I really believe we are, but it's, of all the timing, you know, it seems like we got a game every other day right now. And it's been a little difficult for me, but I'm also a big picture guy where football coach at Michigan State for me is as important as just about anything. It's way more important than a basketball coach. It's way more important than a hockey coach. It's just the nature of the beast. Important sounds like a bad word, like I'm not important. I mean, it carries a lot of your athletic department, you know. And if they're doing well, it's better for me. That's a better way to put it. So it is important to me, whether I have time or not have time. I'm a big picture guy. I've been here for 30-some years. I plan on being here for some more years. And the new guy that's coming in, I hope he thinks I'm his biggest supporter.
All set, guys?
I tell you what we're going to do, guys. We're going to have a 5-minute